Shalum and welcome to the channel. If you're tuning in for the first time, my name is Symmanayah. This series, Letter and Spirit, is about taking seriously how we read the scriptures and that we embrace a prayerful mind and spirit to discern the life in the scriptures, to discern what the Spirit of Yahuah has to say regarding the scriptures. Least we find ourselves trusting our own comprehension skills and academic skills. You see, we are trained and taught one way, but it's the Spirit of Yahuah that brings about a hardening, a softening of a heart, wisdom, and understanding of what and how we should govern ourselves from a set-apart perspective. Therefore, being able to navigate between what the Spirit has to say regarding the meaning of what we read versus just reading from an academic perspective. In this segment, I want to talk about field checks. Field checks, my brothers and sisters. Did you know that we are in a field of different teachings and practices? Be advised, as end times ramp up, we should embrace the need to do field checks. Let's check out there in the field and see what's going on. Let's ask questions and examine what it is that is visible before us to determine the steps we should take as end times get intense. Come with me, my brothers and sisters. Let's take a look. Let's remember these words, and if necessary, step back and look at them again. John 6:44 says, "No one is able to come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him, and I shall raise him up in the last day." Field check. Are the things and people that we see, do they understand that in order to come to Yahusha, we must be drawn by the Father? Are they severing the fact that Yahusha is the word of Yahuah manifest before us? Separating them, ignoring Yahusha. Yahusha represents Yahuah saves. It represents the word. It represents the Spirit, the name of the Spirit that the Almighty Father sent. Consider Matthew 6:33. It says, "But seek first the reign of the Almighty One and his righteousness, and all these shall be added." We must know how to move quickly. If we're doing field checks, let's go to the Almighty Father to open our eyes to see, to discern, to understand. Come with me to John 14:26. I speak of it often because it is widely ignored or neglected. It say, "But the Helper, the set-apart Spirit whom the Father shall send in my name, he shall teach you all and remind you all that I've said to you." So many people don't understand the dynamics that Yahusha is the word of Yahuah. And that when we say Yahusha, we recognize that that is part of the plan of Yahuah, for us to recognize his word. In order to do successful field checks, let us learn to examine things more cautiously. Bear in mind these words as well. Philippians 1:9-11. Yes, I do speak of it often. Let it be ingrained in us. He says, "In this I pray, that your love might extend more and more in knowledge and all discernment, for you to examine the matters that differ, in order to be sincere and not stumbling into the day of Messiah, being filled with the fruit of righteousness through Yahushua Messiah, to the esteem and praise of the Almighty One." My brothers and sisters, there's so much work to do during these end times. So much work, so much to learn. If we are lazy and avoid doing field checks, we risk being in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong people. What say you, my brothers and sisters? Do you know how to do a field check? Do you know what to look for? Consider Proverbs 1:5-7 as we continue on this matter. Proverbs 1, 5, and 7, I'm reading from Esword, says, the wise one hears and increases learning, and the understanding one gets wise counsel. For understanding a proverb in the figure, the words of the wise in their riddles. The fear of Yahuah is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and discipline. We need to pursue knowledge from Abba Yahuah to examine things correctly when performing set-apart field checks. Let's do it prayerfully. Let us know what it means to seek wise counsel. Individuals obedient, discerning, walking in total obedience to the Almighty Father. While many push to encourage us to get into an assembly, keep in mind the need to pursue the Almighty Father Yahuah first. The Almighty Yahuah first. Consider the example mentioned in Galatians 1:15 and 16. It says, but when it pleased the Almighty One who separated me from my mother's womb and called me by his favor, to reveal his Son in me that I might bring him the good news to the nations, I did not immediately consult with flesh and blood. This is Shalum giving us this example. He goes on to say, 17th, 18th verse of Galatians, first chapter. Neither did I go up to Jerusalem to those who were emissaries before me, but I went to Arabia and returned again to Damascus. Then after 3 years, I went up to Jerusalem to learn from Kepha. Kepha is also Peter, and remained with him for 15 days. I'm not suggesting that one wait 3 years, but I am encouraging each individual to begin studying, praying, and seeking the guidance from the Spirit of Yahuah, which comes in Yahusha's name. Don't fall for the push to get in an assembly right away without doing some studying, praying, without developing a heart to pursue the desires of the Almighty Father. Do not let people push you into any assembly using the following passage and saying, that's what the word says. That's what is written, but there's other things written, such as we saw Shaul went into Arabia. So don't let them get you to think that you need to jump in assembly right away. Hebrews 10, 23 through 25 is often used. Let us hold fast the confession of our expectation without yielding, for he who promised is trustworthy. And let us be concerned for one another in order to stir up love and good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together as is the habit of some, but encouraging, and so much more as you see the day coming near. Don't forsake the assembly, but don't dive into assembly without examining it first, without praying and studying first, without seeking Yahuah first. Use questions, and even more questions, my brothers and sisters, for uncovering the conditions of a field. Pray always. Consider these words. 1 Thessalonians. Come take a look. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 16 through 19 reads, rejoice always. Pray without ceasing. Prayer means speaking and inclining your ear to hear what the Spirit of the Almighty Father has to say to you. Some prefer to just say the Ruach this, the Ruach that. The Ruach is the Spirit of Yahuah. The Spirit of Yahuah was sent in Yahusha's name. And I'm referencing John 14, 26. It says, going back to 1 Thessalonians, rejoice 5, 16 through 19. Rejoice always, pray without ceasing, in all circumstances give thanks, for this is the desire of the Almighty One and Messiah Yahusha for you. It says Elohim, but as I state often, when I see Elohim, I say the Almighty One. It goes on to say, do not quench the Spirit, my brothers and sisters. It continues in 20th to 22nd verse of the 5th chapter of 1 Thessalonians. Do not despise prophecy. Prove them all. Hold fast what is good. Keep back from every form of wickedness. When we make successful field checks, we learn more about a community, a camp, a fellowship, a group, or assembly. End times will prove the need to be very cautious as we begin to find ourselves moving during these last days. Yasharal, oh Yasharal, while we're able to check, while we're able to learn, let us do so. For a sense of urgency will rise up, and that sense of urgency will cause many to act erratically or over-anxiously. When making field checks, look for contradictions in teachings and practices, my brothers and sisters. These are the fruit of wicked division, not ordered by the Almighty Father. Contradicting and compromising groups reflect a divide not ordered by Abba Yahuah. Remember, a divided house have an appointment to failure and or death. Be mindful and not get caught in the wrong field with a divided assembly, one that tolerates and allows compromising behaviors and practices and teachings. Come with me to Mark chapter 3, my brother, my sister. Mark chapter 3, I'm reading from the eSword, says this, 3:24 through 26 said, if a reign is divided against itself and that reign is unable to stand. If it's divided against itself, that reign is unable to stand. And if a house is divided against itself, that house is unable to stand. And if Satan has risen up against himself and is divided, he is unable to stand, but has an end. Too many people use the excuse that you're not going to find a perfect assembly. Granted, but at the very minimum, the leadership should not tolerate compromising practices and teachings among its group. He should manage as the Spirit of Yahuah guides him and directs him, and bring correction when evil is present. And that correction may sometimes lead to putting one out of that assembly. Beware of people who prefer to grumble and dispute regarding how corrections come. They busy worried about how you brought about the correction versus focusing on the correction itself. The focus should be on the correction. You see, judgment will come. It may not always be the way we desire, O Yasharal. Field checks require using judgment, discernment, being aware of the scriptures. We will grow to see when to judge and when not to execute judgment on a matter. It is important to make sure our examinations are thorough and correct. If our field checks are off, we risk being a false witness against a brother, community, a camp, a group. It is important to get information from the leader because we may find differences within assemblies that tolerate divisions, compromising practices, and teachings. Since we may have stepped into a community, or assembly, or group, let us go to the leader and find out what is his belief, what is his teaching, what is his position. Even within groups, the field, thus the title Field Checks. Some have become so large that they miss frequent field checks and take for granted that things are the same, not recognizing that cliques may have formed within their group. Divisions and beliefs may have formed in a group. Field checks is something that must be done frequently. Rise up, set apart family. There's much to learn. There's much work ahead of us. On a daily basis, there are things that we must recognize that are coming at us to equip and prepare us for intense times. We must begin to seek to identify how a set-apart nation will come together in unity. End times are here. What do you think? What are your expectations? What are your anticipations? Yasharal, Yasharal, remember this. Remember, there will be a rise of 144,000 and a great multitude as written in Revelation 7 chapter. How close are we to witnessing the rudiments, the actions that will bring about visibility to the 144,000 and a great multitude? Know what it takes. Know what it resembles. Be prepared, O Yahusha, for in field checks we will discover the good and the bad, and know and learn how to navigate to and from where we're supposed to be. Yahusha, field checks are a result of judgment and discipline. Let's welcome judgment and discipline, and let's have a ready mind to respond to the Abba Yahuah, discerning and obeying and taking every step with a degree of caution. Prepare to yield to corrections, my brothers and sisters, and witness why field checks are important. That's all I have to say at this time. Oh, Yahusha, to you, my brothers and sisters, be encouraged. Do your field checks. Check this group, that group, this camp. I'm not saying waffle. I'm not saying be like a shape in the wind, just jumping around to different communities. But if you're going to visit, physically or virtually, ask questions and more questions and even more questions to uncover what is true and what is not. On that note, to you, my brother, my sister, my family, be encouraged. Our redemption is coming. The plan of Yahuah is unfolding. I end by saying, stay tuned. There's more to come. Consider subscribing, share, like. Let's utilize YouTube's algorithm and get set-apart messages out to one another. On that note, I say to you, my brother, my sister, Shalum.